All right, and we're live from AJA on Shabbos. What's up, everybody? Okay, so for those of you who I already know, it's awesome to see you again. Thank you so much for bringing me back. Shehechianu, this is my first time at AJA as my own CEO of my company, The Rose Grows, and we're going to get to that at the end. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rayna Rose Exelbierd the first, and I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, in a small Southern Jewish community like you guys, and I didn't realize until I got to college in South Florida how lucky I was to grow up in a small Jewish community, because when I moved to South Florida for college, there's so many synagogues in South Florida that it's really easy for each synagogue to kind of do their own thing, and for the Jewish community to be kind of divided when it comes to programs and coming together on initiatives. I didn't realize growing up in Memphis how special it was that the whole Jewish community would come together for Holocaust awareness, for the kosher barbecue, little things like that. So you're really, really blessed to grow up in a Southern Jewish community, just like I was. And even though I grew up in Tennessee, I never experienced any kind of racism. I never experienced anti-Semitism. And I want to share one or two stories with you from my high school experiences so you can understand how a gal from Memphis, Tennessee ended up going to college in Boca Raton, right? And inspiring a movement, overcoming anti-Semitism, finding a career that I love, which ultimately led me to starting my own business at 27. Hey! All right. So I'll never forget my senior year, my U.S. government teacher. Maybe you have a teacher like this. She was like, you must write in this color ink. You can only write on this side of the page. You have a teacher like that? You have to do it exactly as they want it or they're going to... Right? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Mr. Carpel. So one day, Lashon Hara, we're not saying any names. So, bring it back. I remember one day, one of those teachers who I thought hated me, right? Because she's like always like telling me to like fix myself, whatever. And one day she came up to me, she said, Rayna, I need your help. Which, what do you think I thought when she said I need your help? I'm like, I need professional help for the trauma that you've caused me. But on the outside, I'm like, okay, And she was like, Rayna, the public schools, we switched to block scheduling, and we need you to make a speech. We need you to go to the Board of Education. We need you to share what's wrong with block scheduling. And for those of you who don't know, my school day went from 6 45-minute periods to 4 1.5-hour long periods. It was rough. It was like a Netflix binge. And when they implemented it, teachers lost their planning periods. If you missed a day of school, you may not see a teacher for a whole week, right? So I love to talk. She said she needed my help. So I went home and I wrote this speech. And I remember, you guys, when I was your age, 2 minutes felt like forever. I was like, what am I going to say in 2 whole minutes? You know me now. I can't stop talking for over an hour, right? But when I was your age, 2 minutes was like, oh my God. So I wrote the speech, and I remember it so well because it was the first time as an individual that I made it on the news. So I go to the Board of Education meeting. I'm the youngest person there probably by like 40 years, all right? I'm there with my dad, and we wait. We wait some more. Turns from light to night outside. We've been there a couple of hours, and finally, it's my turn to go up and speak. And the soundbite that made the news when I was standing at the podium, I said, what am I supposed to tell college? Dear college, I'm sorry I have no recommendations for you. My teachers are being overworked. And y'all, there were like over 100 teachers in the audience who at that moment, you know what they did? Woo! They started cheering me on. If there was Snapchat back then, it would have been on the story. But the best part of the story was on Monday. I got a letter from the Board of Education that every single suggestion that I made in my speech, you know what happened? It was officially adopted as school-wide policy for the entire city. So what did we learn from that lesson? Yeah, we can cheer for that. So what did we learn from that lesson? That when we speak up, we have no idea what kind of impact we're going to make. Especially when we speak up, even just to help somebody else, a friend, a teacher, right? So that was like a pretty rewarding experience. And the other experience I want to share from high school is I remember my junior year of high school, and in my contemporary issues class, we were reading about the Israeli conflict, and the way it described the way it described Israeli soldiers, it kind of made me feel a little uncomfortable. So I asked my teacher if I could bring in my cousin, who's an Israeli soldier, to share his story, what do you think she said?
No.
Give your teacher some credit. When I first graduated college and nobody knew who I was, it was all my teachers who I had growing up who were the first ones to give me a chance to come in and speak. Your teachers are your biggest coaches and your biggest cheerleaders. Same thing with my government teacher. I thought she hated me because she was always like correcting me and yelling at me. But the truth is they see the potential in you to be the best you. And I know for a fact that you are all blessed to be at AJA, where every single teacher here is dedicated to your success, whether you see it or not. And the best part is the relationships you build here isn't just going to last you when you're in high school. It's going to last you into your career, into your adult life. You are a part of the AJA family. You got to let that sink in. Seriously, you have a huge support system of people around you, and your teachers want you to succeed. But if you need help in a certain area and you don't ask for help, that's been one of the biggest things I've had to learn in starting my own business. If you don't ask for help, then nobody's going to give it to you because they don't know that you need it, right? And he appeared. That's the parsha this week. Ask for help and they will appear. So anyways, I brought my cousin in to speak, right? And it ended up being a highlight of the class. And I totally forgot about it until a couple of years later, my cousin was like, hey, do you remember that time you brought me to speak at your class? And I was like, oh my God, that was a sign. Because what was I talking about? When I was 17 years old, I brought in my cousin just because of what I read in the textbook. But when I was working at Stand With Us in my last job, what did I professionally do for 4 years? Brought speakers into classes. I brought Israeli soldiers to your school, to other schools in the city of Atlanta. So in life, what's going to make you successful is following through on most of your ideas. It's not necessarily because you're the smartest or it's because you're the richest. It's because you had ideas and you followed through on most of them. Nobody follows through on all their ideas. But I promise if you follow through on more of your ideas, then people are going to think you're a more kind, more intentional person. You know, I should have texted that person to tell them happy birthday. Or I should have come 10 minutes earlier. All those little things is how people remember you, right? So take advantage of all the opportunities you have here because, again, everything you're doing right now is shaping your future, right? I'm so glad I followed through on that idea to bring in my cousin. So when I was 18, all my friends were going straight to college. But what did I decide to do? I went to Eretz Yisrael. Yes, I went to Israel. It was incredible, y'all. The first 3 months I was in the Israeli army. It was sick. The next 3 months, I was living in Jerusalem, right? I was working at an archaeological dig site. The next 3 months, I was living in Bat Yam, which is right outside Tel Aviv. I was coaching Jewish and Muslim kids in soccer, making incredible friends from all over the world. But you know what? It was in Israel. For the first time, I was exposed to this idea that, you know, when you get to America, when you get to college, you might meet some people who don't like Israel. You might experience anti-Semitism. That's what they told me. Now, I knew I was going to college in Boca Raton. What do you think about when I say Boca Raton?
The sixth town.
Yeah, literally, the sixth town, the sixth borough, exactly. Boca Raton, bring it back, y'all. I believe Boca Raton as a city has more Jewish people than the entire state of Tennessee, right? So when they said to me, you might experience racism, what do you think I thought? If I didn't experience it in Tennessee, I'm definitely not going to experience it in Boca. I thought my anti-Semitism class was like algebra. Like, when am I ever going to need this? Which, by show of hands, who here is good at algebra? Who's good at math? Raise them high. Raise them high. Everybody who's talking right now, you're about to miss out on some $10,000 advice. Where are my algebra people at? Raise your hands. High. All right. Major Keeler. Shh. If you listen to anything, that I say today, anybody who goes to college, the majority of majors need what to graduate, teachers? Algebra. Like over 90% of the majors, and I just made up that stat, need algebra to graduate. And what I can tell you in college, people will pay you $50 to $100 cash for 1 hour of tutoring. And when you're the math tutor, it's on your schedule. It's not on anybody else's schedule. So if you're not good at math yet, invest the money in tutoring now. Invest the time in getting proficient in it now. Because if you can be an algebra tutor in college, you're always going to be rich and have money for shoes. I'm so serious. Don't be like me, where my parents had to pay for 2 whole extra algebra classes just because I didn't take advantage of the opportunity when I had it, right? I took Spanish for 4 years. You guys know how much Spanish I speak?
None.
None, and I have a Spanish name. It means queen. Don't you think I knew if I would have known I was going to go to college in Florida, I maybe would have paid a little bit more attention in Spanish class? How many people speak Spanish in Florida? The majority, right? My dad used to tell people that I could give a bottle of Tylenol a headache. For Rosh Hashanah a couple years ago, I got to be in Cuba. I couldn't have one genuine conversation with another Cuban. Why? Didn't speak Spanish. And every taxi that I got in Cuba cost way more than it should. Why? Because I didn't speak the language. So I'm telling you, it's not just clubs that you are involved with that are going to give you opportunities in life. It's your algebra class. It's your language class. And I know that's hard to see now. But I'm telling you, as a 27-year-old looking backwards, I'm a lot more successful than some of my peers because I took advantage of those things. But at the same time, I can also recognize how much more successful I would be had I fully invested myself in some of those experiences that I didn't. And I'm so appreciative that I paid attention in that anti-Semitism class, because the first week of school, somebody said to my face that Israeli soldiers drink blood. I was like, does this look like somebody who would drink blood? And he went on to tell me how Jews stole the land and Israel was racist. And when I was in college, I wasn't prepared to meet other Jewish students who didn't support Israel. I wasn't prepared to come home on Friday night and on my dorm was an eviction notice that said that Israel kicks people out of their homes for no reason and that I was being kicked out of my dorm. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and these bullies at my college were allowed to use university money to bring in a Holocaust denier to speak at my campus, even though my college has a major for Holocaust studies. Exactly. I didn't know that when I was in high school. I learned it when I was 19, 20 years old. In America, free speech also includes hate speech. You can say anything that you want as long as you're not physically hurting someone. But what's interesting is if you look at the free speech laws in Germany, if you say something anti-Semitic or if you say something that's threatening to Jews, it's not protected under free speech. And it was through overcoming these challenges in college that I realized, oh my God, I have to get educated. Because I grew up going to a modern Orthodox shul. I'd been to Israel a few times, but I didn't know where Israel was on the map. I couldn't tell you that the iPhone 8 was being developed there or that Israel and Syria don't have peace, but we're treating Syrian refugees in Israeli hospitals. I knew none of that. I just knew what they were saying was wrong, right? And so that inspired me to bring really interesting speakers to other student organizations, to have events with each other. And it was through overcoming all of that that I realized, wow, I know I went to college to study business and to make a lot of money, but I really, really, really like teaching people about Israel. And I'm not here to tell you the whole full story of what happened, but through mobilizing leaders on campus and in the community, we had a lot of important people fired at my school. I was able to inspire a movement and a community that I didn't even grow up in. My junior year of high school was the first time I ever won an election, right, with BBYO, the youth group I was involved with. But I ran every single time for a position, and I never got anything. And my junior year of high school, the only reason I won was because nobody ran against me, right? And my junior year of high school, with my BBYO group, I had fundraised. We organized a fashion show. We raised over $5,000 for Make-A-Wish. But when I was a junior in college, those same skills I learned when I was a junior in high school, I fundraised $30,000. I organized a 3-day Israel convention at my college where we had over 150 college students from all over Florida come to FAU. We had an awesome Shabbos with Chabad and Hillel who worked together. We had tons of organizations who co-sponsored, and it caused such a ripple effect in my campus that it inspired all these underclassmen to get involved. And when they graduated, they all went to work at all these major different Jewish and pro-Israel organizations. So it just goes to show, by being true to your values, by pushing what you believe in, you can inspire other people to find their own success as well. So when I graduated college, I went to work for Stand With Us, and for the last 4 years, I was working as a motivational speaker and mentor for teens in 6 states. I had the opportunity to talk to students from all different backgrounds. Yasser Arafat's great niece follows me on Instagram and recognized Israel as a Jewish state in one of my presentations. I've had the opportunity to speak to over 15,000 JROTC students. Those are students in public high schools who are taking like a class about the military, and some of them, when they get older, actually join the military. You see that in a lot of inner city schools. And the reason I'm telling you that is because sometimes we think that Israel is very controversial and we shouldn't be sharing it with people. But people, Israel's like your best friend, okay? If somebody doesn't know your best friend, you're not going to tell them that they're a flake, they never pay for the Uber, and that they leave your texts on red all the time, right? Because then they're never going to get to know your friend, right? Israel is not perfect, just like neither is any single person sitting in this room, but we have a right to be imperfect. And when talking to different people, you have to understand what's their personality, what are their values. When it comes to Israel, your job is not to change anybody's mind over anything. It's to know who you're talking to and inspire them with a story, with a fact, or show them a picture that's going to mean something to their personality. Does that make sense? It's kind of like marketing. And if you hear somebody who says something hateful, don't automatically assume, oh my God, that person's an anti-Semite. Oh my God, that person hates Jews. I can't talk to them. Because in 2019, when you can go on Netflix and see that Hitler is roasting Anne Frank, most people today have never met a Holocaust survivor. I was in Memphis, Tennessee a month ago. I spoke to over 100 freshman girls in a public high school. They never heard of the Holocaust. So when you hear somebody say something hateful, your first job should be, let me listen to this person, let me ask questions to figure out why they have that perspective. Maybe they saw something on social media. Maybe their parents said something at home, and that's why they're sharing that viewpoint. You do not have to be involved with an Israel club to make a difference for Israel. You don't have to be in Israel to make a difference for Israel, right? And there's over 600 mitzvahs in the Torah, but in my opinion, one of the most important mitzvahs is inspiring a connection to Israel for other people, most importantly, for other Jewish people. And after 4 years, I realized I'm most passionate about sharing my message. I'm most passionate about building relationships and creating projects within my own contacts. So 5 months ago, I left Stand With Us to start my own company called The Rose Grows. This idea, through random acts of kindness and conversation, we are measured by how we treat people. You can be your own influencer in the real world. It's not how many people follow you online, it's how you treat the person sitting next to you. And in my opinion, it's how you treat people who you don't immediately know, which I think we call that derech eretz, right? To be a good person. Yeah, it's awesome I know how to fundraise. Yes, it's awesome that I know how to plan events and I can do public speaking. But if you're not a good person first, it doesn't matter what other skills you have. You will never be a good leader if you're not kind, if you don't listen, right? If you don't give other people a chance to shine, if you don't share your resources with others, right? One of my favorite things to tell people is when one grows, we all grow. And that's where I am right now. I'm working with other speakers, other very influential speakers who I would say are like 2 to 3 steps ahead of me, and that they've published books and that they have big followings on social media. And for me booking events for them, it's an opportunity for me to make money, to help them grow, but it's also giving me the opportunity to grow my own business as I travel and make new connections. So I want to leave you guys with this thought that everybody sitting in this room has different skills and gifts. And all of you guys care about different things. My thing is Israel and Holocaust. Your cause may be something totally different. But my challenge to you as you get older, if you can think about ways of how can I put my gifts to causes that I care about, you can get paid to do something good that makes you feel good, right? If you're really talented at making videos and you care a lot about animals, then maybe you should be making videos for a nonprofit that works with animals. right? Which I'll tell you right now, as young people, if there's an organization in the community that you care about, if you reach out to them and say you want to help them with their social media, they're going to give you an internship immediately. Most likely. So don't be afraid to ask. Nobody's going to read your mind, like I said at the beginning. You have to speak up. You have to be a good person. And when you get a chance later, you also have to follow me on social media. The Rose Grows. Thank you very much for listening to everything that I had to say. Y'all rock.